I'll pan back out and walk on down there. It doesn't appear like we're shaking around as much as we had been before, although it's kind of windy out here, living up to Oklahoma tradition. You can see the longitudinal cracking as we go on down here, and I've got this characterized as edge cracking rather than longitudinal because it basically just hangs right along there at the joint between the different passes of the laydown machine. The shoulder was everything was built brand new construction or reconstruction out here when 69 was reconstructed back in 1981. Okay, we have a little bit of minor low severity level, and I've got this characterized as alligator cracking. Maybe difficult to see in here with the lighting conditions we have. It's showing the beginnings of doing some alligatoring, so I classified it as low severity level, and I've got it down for about 10 square feet of it. Moving on down the test section, coming up on Station 1. Pavement's in pretty good condition considering the amount of truck traffic it carries. I have a few minor, just localized places of longitudinal cracking down the right wheel path, which are typically of the low severity level. Stop it right here. Okay, we're coming up on the halfway point in the test section. One thing that wasn't in evidence here, which was in Veneta yesterday, was transverse cracking. I didn't notice any of it throughout the test section. And in fact, there isn't any on the shoulder. There is some distress on the shoulder. There's some minor cracking, particularly along the edge. However, there's no real place on the form to indicate that, and there's nothing really that we'll be able to compare it to in the future. Speaking with Mr. Hickson for a moment there, the rutting is continuing to be measured at a higher level in the inside wheel path than the outside. Measurements are running roughly from 3/10 to 4/10 of an inch on the inside wheel path, and typically around 2/10 of an inch in the outside. Got a rather coarse mixture on the surface, which haven't seen any evidence of bleeding on, nor of any polishing. See, we're approaching the end of the test section up here. Right underneath me we have some additional minor cracking similar to what we've shown before. Okay, I'm going to step aside and show an example of some of the minor longitudinal cracking that we have here. Again, I'm not sure how visible this is. It's so bright out here, it's hard to see. I'm going to stop the tape and set the ruler down so we have a little datum to use. I know there's no way of telling the scale looking at this right now. Just getting a close-up view of the crack, trying to indicate how wide it is. It's pretty tightly closed and quite narrow. Let me move around here. I know I'm jiggling it some. But it's showing a little bit of evidence of spalling at the very surface, but the crack itself is very tightly closed, and I considered this to be a low severity level longitudinal crack. And on down and just follow it along. And it ends right up on here, just before the end of the test section. 2, I'm going to close close in on it to indicate the thickness. Appears we have approximately 11 inches plus or minus of asphalt concrete, which is still within what we were looking for, since this was characterized as a high thickness asphalt concrete over a low thickness base. I'll back off and show something. The layers that came out of the hole, it appears like we're picking up sand in this area. It's a fine sand, but it's something that we may have to consider further back in the office. It's the problem with just having two boreholes, is that if you have one of one thing and one of the other, which do you choose? The fill depth in here is pretty much constant. It's one reason that it was picked, to try to avoid this sort of a problem. However, it looks like as we get a little bit closer, a little bit further to the north and close to the river, we may have encountered some of the sand. Now, just where we encounter it is impossible to say right now. I'm going to try to find some of that out, talking with some of the people locally here in a minute. I'll move on up and pan around the area and indicate what I'm talking about with it being a constant fill, or relatively constant fill. Here over to the side of the test section off the road. I'm going to pan it off to my left, looking back towards the east, just to show that, you know, we're in a pretty flat section right here, right in the river bottom, and that we've got there's nothing really there to indicate whether we had a change in materials coming up. Looking back on the test section now, pan around, comes another truck out of that pit we were referring to before. Look at it and see which direction it goes. I'm not going to wait on that. Okay, it's one of the ones that's going to be turning to the north. Panning about. There's that sand pit that I've mentioned and referred to a number of times. Arkansas River Bridge up ahead. Back around. Go back over here. And I want to watch this just to see what kind of a pattern it takes, because it's going to be typical of everything else. What I'm concerned about here is that the ESAL readings, or the readings we would get from the traffic monitoring equipment, wouldn't be appropriate for the test section. However, since we're only concerned with the outside lane, and